Hi, and welcome to another overview of Moon Knight, looking at episode 2 today from the perspective of dissociative identity disorder. My name is Dr. Mike Lloyd. I am the CTAD Clinic Director. So in episode 1, we looked a little bit about whether it was a realistic portrayal of DID or not, and I would like to start with a shout out to NS, who let me know through the comment section that Oscar Isaac, who's the star of the show, has clearly done some research with a chap called Robert Oxenham, who's written a book called A Fractured Mind, and it's an excellent book, and I would encourage anyone to have a look at it. But I'm really impressed that Oscar Isaac has done some really great research with someone who fundamentally does know a great deal about DID from an expert by experience perspective. So that was really good, and thank you for letting me know about that. So in this episode, I was kind of interested to look at the nature of the portrayal. We're obviously understanding from this point that DID is a feature of the Stephen Grant character and the Mark Spector kind of alter within the DID system. But when I was watching it, certainly the opening scenes when he's in the museum, it struck me that actually the portrayal was really similar to what you would see in a acute psychosis presentation. And that if somebody was looking at this episode, let's say, without the understanding about the DID, they'd be really kind of heavily influenced towards psychosis as a diagnostic criteria. And the elements of this are all over the place. So there's visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, definitely tactile hallucinations, there's voice hearing, there's paranoia, there's the absolute distress, there's the lack of being able to sort of like rationalize and really understand it. Now, throughout, Stephen Grant's character is quite sensible and quite coherent in terms of his narrative, and it will be that would make you stop and think, okay, I wonder what's going on here, is there something else happening? And to really kind of deliberate on this is about trying to see the symptoms from the perspective of the individual and try and understand the context and when it's not happening. Because it's really easy to jump to conclusions about psychosis based on symptoms. So you're having hallucinations, you're hearing voices, therefore you've got psychosis. But it's not happening all the time. It's happening in very specific locations. And we're seeing Stephen Grant having these, and then in between that, he's kind of functioning normally. He's having conversations, he's doing various different things. And I guess assuming in the background he's eating and drinking and doing all the usual stuff. So taking the time to really stop and understand it from Stephen's perspective and listen to what he's saying is really the key to try and working through the diagnosis. Because there is a lot of stuff going on. He's just seeing things that are not there. He's being chased by things that are not there. He's standing in the middle of the street and bystanders are looking at him, and he seems to be having a punch-up completely on his own. And quite rightly, members of the public are sort of walking past, looking and thinking, that guy's gone absolutely crazy. He is having a fight against a monster that no one can see. It was very reminiscent, actually, of one of the scenes in Ghostbusters when I think the Keymaster is kind of having a fight with one of the big dogs knocking about the place outside a restaurant. And I was instantly taken back to Ghostbusters, which I'm not sure whether the Marvel Studios were really planning on that, but that's sort of where that one took me. So maybe you thought the same if you were watching that episode. Another thing that struck me about this was Ethan Hawke's character, the way that he sat down, the way that he calmed Stephen Grant, the way he worked with him and tried to explain to him. It felt quite therapeutic, and I know I really like Ethan Hawke, but I was sort of watching and thinking, oh, he's doing a bit of a therapy job here. He's like saying, well, would your alter be able to speak to me? Would Mark be able to talk to me? He was engaging, he was encouraging Stephen Grant to think about this internal world. He wasn't labeling him as being psychotic. He wasn't assuming he was crazy. He was going with Stephen's narrative and he was trying to understand it. Now, he had purpose and he's got sort of nefarious schemes going on in the background, and that's fine because that's the plot. But actually, it looked very therapeutic. It looked like the kind of thing that we would do in therapy with someone who's very distressed about having alters. They're fighting against alters to come out. They don't want them to come out. The level of distress, the fear, the worry about what they might do and what the consequences might be are very real to many people. And what Ethan Hawke's character was doing in that was really demonstrating that kind of therapeutic tone, that very calm, very rational. It's very sensible and absolutely being believed. And I think you watch Stephen Grant, that Oscar Isaac's character, came from a high level of distress, and you could see him kind of like just calming and calming as he was having a conversation with someone who fundamentally believed everything that he was being told. And for a lot of people with DID, that is fundamentally important, because that's often something that's completely missed. That people will sort of narrate these symptoms, instantly go to psychosis, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders, whatever it might be, and not really give the person an opportunity to calm down, and maybe often use medication for that rather than sitting and engaging. And one of the things that we get told a lot in clinic is that what really makes the difference when a person comes into a service like ours is being believed, is to sit down and go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, I believe it, I suspect this is what's going on, you've got this internal world, you've got these alters, they're not like Egyptian moon god assassin or whatever things they might be floating about the place, but you've got these alters, and we can work with that. We can talk, we can narrate, we can collaborate, we can learn, and we can develop the understanding between them. And that is so key to a person being able to move forward. And I like the fact that the Stephen Grant character kind of like started really high, and he sort of came down and he was massively distressed. And in that whole sequence when he was with Ethan Hawke and they were sitting there talking, they calmed and they had a rational conversation. It went completely pear-shaped after that because of the nature of the story and the plot. And again, we have to have that understanding that this is yet another portrayal of DID within this kind of big action adventure thing, and it's all about life or death and fighting and violence and punch-ups in the street and things. And that's really not those people's point of view or experience of DID. So again, I'm not saying that it's great that we're seeing DID within the context of this kind of show, but it's being done well. So if you sort of take out the nature of the show, the action of it, or the bang 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 Marvel superhero business, and actually you just look at the portrayal of DID, it's remaining really good. So in episode 2, leading on from episode 1, there are many elements which again are classic DID symptoms: the dissociative amnesia, the voice hearing, the conversations. These are actual conversations, these are not hearing voices. There is a to and fro quality to this. There is a sense of not wanting an alter come out, then there is permission for an alter to come out, the alter does come out, and then they sort of trade places again, and the person's dealing with the consequences, having no memory of what's taken place. So these are absolute signs that DID are present within this kind of superhero universe. My hope is that what it's doing ultimately is continuing to draw the narrative towards DID being a thing, that people watching this are not going, oh, what a load of nonsense, this is just superhero, this is just you've injected with a serum and suddenly you can fly. That this is actually sort of like embedded in a reality that I'm hoping people will, maybe first time coming to something like dissociation, look at this and go, yeah, okay, I get it, this makes sense and this is pretty good. So that was my overview really of episode 2. I'd also like to thank out many of the subscribers to the channel that have pointed out that episode 5 contains a lot of trauma, and I will get to episode 5 and I will be discussing that. And I guess it's important for people who are going to continue watching this kind of mini series of videos about this show to know that there is an episode coming up which I'm being told is going to be difficult for people. So if you are watching this, if my videos are encouraging you to watch the show, then I guess episode 5 is the one that has the trigger warning built into it. That's what I'm being told. I will see when we get there, and I'll pave the way for that as best as I can do. I think that pretty much covers episode 2 then. Again, I really enjoyed it, and I will be watching episode 3, and I'll put another video out and continue doing other CTAD channel stuff along the way as we go along. But this is kind of a nice little sort of segue off into something different, so I hope it's useful to you, and I'll see you for the next episode when I've watched it. And then in the meantime, take great care of yourselves.